When Meri steps into the courthouse that morning, the air shifts. You can feel it. Something heavy, something old, something that's been waiting years to explode. The hallway outside the courtroom is packed with reporters, former friends, silent enemies, and people who claim they always knew something was wrong with the Browns. But Meri doesn't look at any of them. Her jaw is set. Her eyes are swollen but focused. She walks like a woman who has finally stopped running. A courtroom is cold inside. Too cold. The kind of cold that makes folks hug themselves. The fluorescent lights hum softly overhead, a strange soundtrack to the tensions simmering just below the surface. Christine and Janelle sit on the left side of the gallery, whispering sharply. Robyn sits alone at the defense table, hands trembling, but her makeup flawless, as if she spent extra time making sure the world could see her pain. And then there's Kody, loud, restless, pacing like someone trapped in his own ego. His hair pulled back, his eyes darting everywhere except in the direction of Meri. When he finally looks at her, for just a flash, you can see something flicker across his face. Fear, anger, a secret he's terrified might come out. The bailiff calls for order. The judge enters. The rune rises, then settles. Everyone waits. Meri doesn't sit. Not yet. She stands near the plaintiff's table, clutching a bag. A worn-out leather bag that looks too small for something big enough to start a legal war. She takes a deep breath as the judge glances at her. "Mrs. Brown," says the judge, "you may begin when you're ready." Yet Meri doesn't utter a word. She reaches into her bag, slow, deliberate, and pulls out a thick, sealed envelope marked "Confidential. DNA report." Every head snaps towards her. Christine gasps. Janelle's eyes widen. Kody's mouth falls open for a second, before he slams his hand on the table. "Meri, what are you doing?" he snaps, his voice cracking. "We agreed." "No." Meri interrupts him for the first time in years. "You agreed. I stayed silent." Her voice is steady, but there's something trembling beneath it. Not fear. Power. Robyn's fingers curl together like she's bracing for a storm. She looks to Kody for reassurance, but he just stares on at the envelope, as if it is some kind of ticking bomb. The judge leans forward slightly. "Mrs. Brown, please explain the relevance of this evidence." Meri steps forward finally, and there's something almost cinematic about it, her hand shaking just a little as she places the envelope on the judge's bench. "Your Honor," she says softly, "this is the reason we are here today." A murmur spreads through the courtroom. The judge waves his hand for the courtroom to quiet down. "Begin your statement, Mrs. Brown." Meri inhales. You can see the years of pain rising behind her eyes. For over a decade, she begins. "I believed certain things about my family because I wanted to, because it was easier than facing the truth. But the truth doesn't go away just because you ignore it." Kody groans loudly, attempting to interject, but the judge's hand rises abruptly. Meri continues. "Last year, I started to notice inconsistencies, things that didn't add up, stories that changed, documents that were altered." Robyn stiffens, eyes filling with tears. "Meri," she whispers, "don't do this." Meri doesn't even look at her. "I asked for a DNA test," she says matter-of-factly. "Not out of spite, not for revenge, but because I needed to know if the man that I had trusted had betrayed more than just a marriage." The room has fallen silent. Christine looks at Janelle, both realizing this is much bigger than expected. Even the judge stops writing. "This is ridiculous. A stunt. Kody blurts. "Kody." Meri says, turning to him for the first time. If you have nothing to hide, why are you shouting? Whispers again break out in the courtroom. Meri holds the judge's gaze. This report contains DNA results involving a member of our family. Results that contradict everything Kody and Robyn have told the rest of us. Robyn vigorously shakes her head. That's not true. She's twisting. Mrs. Brown, says the judge firmly, you'll get your chance to answer. For what feels like an eternity, no one stirs. No one even breathes. The envelope lies there, silent like a ghost. Every single person in that room can feel the weight of it, the way it can shatter everything. Finally, the judge speaks up. Mrs. Brown, before I open this, I need clear context. What precisely compelled you to request DNA confirmation? And here the tone shifts. Meri exhales shakily and looks down, collecting her strength. Your Honor, there was a night 2 years ago when Robyn told me something. Something she had said by accident when she thought I was half asleep. At the time, I took it as stress or confusion. But the more I replayed it, the more I realized what she said wasn't a mistake. Robyn's eyes go wide. That's not fair. Meri continues, her voice growing firmer. She said someone's real father, and she said Kody didn't know the whole truth. Gasps erupt through the gallery. The judge raises an eyebrow. Mrs. Brown, are you saying there may be undisclosed paternity issues within the Brown family? Kody slams his chair back. This is outrageous. We're not airing this like some scam episode of Kody Brown, the judge snaps. Sit down or I will remove you. Kody's jaw clenches as he drops back into his chair, shaking with anger. Meri swallows. I didn't want to believe it, but too many things weren't adding up. So yes, I sought answers, and I found them. The judge slowly reaches for the envelope. Robyn utters something under her breath, a single, terrified no. The judge runs a finger under the seal, but doesn't open it yet. Instead, he looks around the room, studying the faces, Meri's determination, Christine's heartbreak, Janelle's shock, Robyn's panic, and Kody's barely controlled rage. This court, he says slowly, will review all evidence presented. But before I open this report, I need to determine if there were prior attempts to mask or alter family records. The sentence hits Kody like a punch. He jumps up again. Oh, come on. The judge slams the gavel. Mr. Brown, one more outburst and you're done. Silence. Silence. Absolute, suffocating. The judge leans forward once more. Mrs. Brown, do you have additional evidence to support this allegation? And that's when Meri does something no one expected. She reaches into her bag again. Christine gasps. Janelle covers her mouth. Kody steps back like he's watching a grenade fall into his lap. Meri pulls out a second envelope, thinner, older, its edges worn. This, she says, her voice trembling, is the document that made me realize I wasn't crazy. I wasn't imagining things. The truth has been in front of us for years. She places it beside the DNA report. The judge looks shocked. What is this? Meri takes a breath. It's the original birth certificate, she says softly. Before it was changed. Robyn breaks down crying. Kody says something way too softly to understand. Christine whispers, "Oh my God." The judge freezes. Then he lowers his voice and says, "Everybody sit down. We are opening these documents now." The bailiff locks the doors. The lights flicker once, and the seal is finally broken by the judge as the room goes silent. The courtroom is frozen. Nobody moves. Nobody even breathes. The judge stares at the DNA report as if he was staring at something impossible, something nobody in the room was ready to face. Kody shifts uncomfortably in his seat, his foot tapping anxiously under the table. His face twitches with a mix of anger and dread. Robyn sits beside him, her fingers gripping each other tightly, her knuckles turned white. Her mascara smudges as tears pool, but don't fall, almost like she's trying to hold every emotion inside her body. Meri is perfectly still. "Mrs. Brown," the judge repeats, voice quivering just a little now. "I asked you a question. Where did you get this?" Meri swallows. "Your Honor, I didn't find it. It was given to me." That sentence sends a shockwave through the room. Christine says, leaning in closer, "By who?" Janelle whispers something back in return, her voice too quiet to hear. Even the reporters stop typing. Kody barks, "This is ridiculous. Someone's trying to frame my family." But his voice cracks at the end, and everyone hears it. The judge looks up, eyeing Kody with unnerving calm. "Mr. Brown, you will remain silent unless spoken directly to. This is a court of law, not a reality show." A few people snicker in the gallery, but one glare from the judge and they are silent. Meri finally speaks again. "Your Honor, the person who gave me that document did so because they were afraid of what might happen if they came forward themselves." The judge narrows his eyes. "Are you telling this court there may be witness intimidation involved?" Robyn gasps loudly. "That's not true. We never threatened anyone." Her voice breaks on the last word, emotional, desperate, almost too desperate. Bold retention booster. When Robyn cries, it's never clear if she's breaking or performing. The judge ignores the outburst. He turns another page inside the envelope. His eyebrows lift. This birth certificate has two different paternal signatures. One original, one altered. The gallery erupts in whispers. Christine whispers sharply, "I knew it. I knew something was wrong." She nods slowly, shifting her weight onto one leg and looking nervous. Kody slams his hand on the table. "This is a lie. Someone forged." "Mr. Brown, enough." Kody clamps his jaw shut so tightly the muscles spasm. Then the judge says the words that shift the whole case. "We will need testimony from the person who provided these documents. If they fear retaliation, then they may have relevant information this court must hear." Meri closes her eyes for a moment, not in fear, but in resolve. "Your Honor, that person is willing to speak, but they asked to be called only when absolutely necessary." The judge nods once. "Very well." He turns to the bailiff. "Bring in the forensic analyst." The room tenses. Shoes echo against the linoleum floor as a tall man enters, calm, professional, carrying a single briefcase. He walks to the stand, is sworn in, and adjusts his glasses. "State your name and expertise, please," says the judge. "Dr. Alan Mertz, Senior Forensic Analyst, specializing in DNA comparison and document verification." Even the way he speaks feels like a scalpel, sharp, precise, and careful. The judge hands both envelopes to him. "Doctor, summarize your findings for the court." Dr. Mertz opens the DNA report first. He reads quietly, his lips tightening. "The DNA test," he begins, "was performed using samples from the alleged father and the child in question. The results show a 0% probability of..." Kody suddenly shoves his chair backward and shouts, "Stop! You don't get to say it. You don't get to say anything." The courtroom erupts into chaos. Reporters stand. Cameras flash. Christine and Janelle rise instinctively, bracing for impact. Robyn grabs Kody's arm, crying hysterically, "Kody, please, please stop." Security surges forward. The judge bangs the gavel down. "Order, order in this court." But the drama only escalates. Because Kody isn't fighting the officials, he's breaking. Right there in front of everyone. He pounds his fist on the table over and over, breathing heavily, as if he's trying to hold a volcano inside his chest. "Meri," he growls, his trembling hand pointing at her. "You don't know what you're doing. You don't know what this will do to the family." But Meri's voice comes out calm, too calm. "Kody, I'm doing exactly what should have been done a long time ago." The judge motions for security to step back. "Mr. Brown, one more outburst and you will be removed." Kody slumps down, trembling, swallowing hard. The judge looks back at Dr. Mertz. "Continue, doctor." "Doctor." Mertz clears his throat softly. "As I was saying, the DNA results show 0% probability that the alleged father is biologically related to the child." Complete silence falls. Suffocating silence, the kind that seeps into your bones. Christine covers her mouth. Janelle closes her eyes. Meri stared ahead, her eyes showing no joy, no anger, just heartbreak. Finally, Robyn whispers, "No, no, that's not right. That's not right." She curls into herself, shaking violently. The judge asks, "Is there any possibility the results were compromised?" Dr. Mertz shakes his head. "No, Your Honor. Chain of custody was intact. Samples match all verification markers. This test is accurate." But then he stops, and there is a second report. Every eye in the room snaps to him. "A second DNA report?" repeats the judge. Dr. Mertz nods. "Yes, Your Honor. The one turned in by the Browns' legal team 2 months ago. It claims a 99.9% biological match." Gasps. That number sits in the air like poison. "2 reports," the judge says slowly. "Both claiming the opposite result?" "Yes." Meri swallows. "Your Honor, that's what I've been trying to say." The judge rubs his temples. "Doctor, are both reports legitimate?" Dr. Mertz doesn't answer immediately. He reaches into his briefcase and pulls out 2 sheets of paper. "These," he says, "are the signature pages, one from each report." He holds them up. Both contain the signature of Dr. William Hensley, the original DNA specialist. "So," snaps Kody, too quickly. "So," continues Dr. Mertz, "Dr. Hensley died last year." The room erupts again. Robyn gasps. Her body sags toward the table. Kody's face drains of color. Christine stares ahead, dumbfounded. Janelle grips the pew so tightly her knuckles turn white. "Meri," the judge says in a hushed tone, "who provided the second report?" Meri doesn't speak. She simply stares at Kody. The judge follows her gaze. "Mr. Brown," he says sternly, "did you submit falsified medical documents to this court?" Kody stands slowly, too slowly. I don't know what she's talking about," he mutters, though his voice shakes and is uneven. Robyn reaches out for his hand, as if begging him not to answer. The judge looks at Dr. Mertz. "Doctor, is the second report forged?" Dr. Mertz hesitates, then nods. "Yes, Your Honor, it is." The courtroom just about erupts. It's as if someone has dropped a bomb. One woman gasped loudly enough to turn the bailiff in her direction. And then the judge asks the question nobody expected. "Doctor, is it clear who submitted this forged document?" Dr. Mertz nods again. "Yes, Your Honor. The digital metadata contains the name of the person who scanned the final document into the system." He looks at the judge, then at the gallery, then directly at the defense table. The judge tightens. "Name the person who did it." Dr. Mertz takes a slow breath. The document was scanned under the login credentials of. Suddenly, the courtroom doors burst open. Everyone turns. A figure walks in. A man hood up, shaking from nerves, eyes red, like he hasn't slept in days. He looks familiar, but older now. Christine whispers, "Is that?" Janelle gasps, her hand covering her mouth. Even Mary's eyes widen. The man steps forward, his voice trembling. "It was me," he says. "I scanned it, and I know everything." The courtroom freezes. Robyn breaks down crying. Kody's face fills with horror, because standing there is someone they all thought would never turn against them. The courtroom fell into a tense silence after my father's outburst. His face was red, his jaw clenched, hands shaking with anger, as he paced dramatically beside the polished wooden table. He acted as though he were performing for an audience, ready to win sympathy, but the only thing he earned was the judge's raised eyebrow and my lawyer's amused smirk. I sat still, calm, my hands clasped together. For the first time in years, I wasn't scared of him. I wasn't angry. I wasn't hurt. I was just ready. Ready for the truth to come out. Ready for justice. Ready for this final battle to end. Dad slammed his hand onto the table. His voice cracked on the last word, not from sadness, but from frustration, because deep down he knew something was wrong. Something didn't add up. He had expected me to walk in scared, confused, and helpless, just like when I was a kid. But instead, I sat confidently, with a quiet smile. His eyes narrowed. He could sense it. I knew something he didn't, and that terrified him. My brother shifted uncomfortably beside him. He wasn't yelling like Dad, but he wasn't exactly innocent either. After all, he had benefited from Dad's favoritism all his life. Every opportunity, every gift, every family privilege. It all went straight to him while I received scraps. And now, they wanted the entire inheritance for themselves. My father then dramatically turned to the judge. Finally, my lawyer stood up, adjusting his glasses with confident calmness. "Your Honor, if I may," he said smoothly. Judge Anderson nodded. "Proceed." My attorney opened a folder. Not just any folder, but the folder I had prepared for months. The one holding the truth both my father and brother never expected. My heart thumped once, steady and strong. This was it. First, my lawyer started off. "Let's address this claim that my client does not have any legal right to this inheritance." Dad rolled his eyes loudly. "Finally," he barked. "Let's get this over with." My lawyer just didn't bat an eyelid. Instead, he reached for the first document. A birth certificate. My father frowned. "What's that supposed to prove?" My lawyer cocked his head slightly. "Everything." He passed the document to the judge, who studied it silently for a moment. Clearly impatient, Dad leaned forward until the judge looked up with a sharp expression. The entire courtroom froze, his lips parted, and for the first time since I was a child, he looked small, shocked, cornered, helpless. My brother blinked fast. What does that mean?" he whispered. But the shock had only just begun. My lawyer placed another paper on the table, a DNA test. Not newly done, not secretly arranged, but part of sealed family records, discovered when the will's executor reviewed old hospital files. Dad stuttered. "This must be some kind of mistake." He's lying. This can't be real," my attorney continued in a calm manner. "As it happens, Your Honor, my client was adopted by the late Mr. Henry Carson, the man whose estate we are discussing today." Murmurs broke out in the courtroom. But my attorney raised a hand, and the room fell silent. "Not only was he adopted," he added, "but Mr. Henry legally registered him as the sole beneficiary more than a decade ago." Dad shook his head violently. "That can't be true. My father wouldn't do that without telling me." My lawyer's smile sharpened. Actually, he did. He reached into his bag and pulled out an envelope. A very old one. The handwriting was unmistakable. Henry Carson's inimitable, flowing cursive. A letter. Addressed to my father. Dad's eyes widened. Where did you? My lawyer unfolded it slowly, dramatically, deliberately. This letter, Your Honor, was found in Mr. Henry's personal safe. It explains why he chose to adopt my client and why he chose to give him the inheritance. Dad lunged forward. You have no right to read that. Judge Anderson brought his gavel down. Sit down, Mr. Carson. Dad froze, swallowing hard. The lawyer read it out loud. To my son, Michael. My father's real name. He hated when people used it. I am writing this letter because I know you will be angry when you discover what I have done. But I want you to understand that I did it because you left me no choice. Dad visibly trembled. Your behavior toward the child you claim as your own has been cruel, dismissive, and harmful. I cannot stand by and watch you destroy him. A gasp rippled through the courtroom. My lawyer continued. You favored one son, and you punished the other. You mocked him, belittled him, and made him feel like he was worthless. That is why I stepped in. That is why I adopted him as my own. Slowly, Dad sat down. His knees had given out. My brother looked like the ground had disappeared under him. I just breathed in deeply. The air felt lighter. I have watched him grow into a good man despite your treatment. And I have decided that my legacy should go to the child who actually learned the meaning of responsibility, hard work, and kindness. The letter ended with, if you are reading this, Michael, it means I have passed, and it means you must finally face the truth you avoided all your life. My lawyer folded the letter gently. You could hear a pin drop. My father buried his face in his hands. My brother just stared at the edge of the table, his jaw hanging. Judge Anderson finally spoke up. Mr. Carson, do you still wish to claim that the inheritance belongs to you? Dad didn't look up. He said nothing. He didn't fight. He knew it was over. But my lawyer wasn't done yet. Your Honor, we also have bank records, video statements from Mr. Henry's attorney, and a notarized final update to the will naming my client as the exclusive beneficiary. He placed a thick stack of sealed documents on the table. Dad winced as if they were physical blows. Judge Anderson nodded slowly. The court will look at every shred of evidence, but from where I'm standing, this case seems pretty cut and dried. Dad weakly lifted his head. His voice cracked when he whispered, Son, please, we can talk about this. Don't do this. I looked at him, really looked at him, at the man who ignored me for years, who mocked me, humiliated me, broke me down, who only wanted me now because of money. And for the very first time, I didn't feel any pain. I didn't feel any anger. I just felt free. My voice was soft, but those words thundered across that courtroom. Dad, you already did this to yourself. My father slumped back into his chair. My brother stared at me, speechless. The judge looked at the clerk. We will reconvene after recess for final statements. As everyone started shuffling, my lawyer leaned toward me. Ready for the final round? I nodded, because this time, for the first time in my life, recess was over much sooner than I had anticipated. Those 20 minutes were but a haze of adrenaline, disbelief, and that strange feeling of peace. Peace that I had never known living in that household. Peace that I never knew round the man who sat opposite me in the court, his hands trembling, his eyes defeated. When Judge Anderson re-entered the courtroom, everyone rose. The tension crawled back in instantly, like a storm cloud settling over us again. My father avoided my eyes entirely. My brother sat stiff, angry, confused, but mostly embarrassed. He wasn't used to being on the losing end of anything. The judge sat down and cleared his throat. We will now proceed with final statements regarding the Carson estate matter. My father's lawyer, a tired older man who clearly realized he had walked into a losing battle, stood up first. Your Honor, my client would like to explain. Dad interrupted him, his voice trembling. Your Honor, I just want my family back. The room fell silent. My lawyer lifted an eyebrow, unimpressed. Dad continued, his voice trembling. This whole situation, this inheritance, all this confusion. Confusion? That word made my jaw tighten. There was no misunderstanding. There was truth, and years of truth being hidden, avoided, and buried. Dad pressed on. My father and I had issues, private issues, and I didn't know he made these changes without telling me. I believe this is all a misunderstanding that can be handled privately within the family. That sentence pushed me past the point of patience. Privately? Like how he discreetly had dealt with everything? Like the insults, the humiliation, the favoritism, the neglect? He wanted privacy now that money was involved. But when the hurt was on me, privacy was never a concern. I felt my lawyer tap my hand gently. He knew what I was thinking. The judge leaned forward. Mr. Carson, the evidence provided as proof, such as adoption papers, will updates, the letter, and notarized statements, do not indicate any misunderstanding, but rather an intentional, clearly thought-out decision on the part of your late father. Dad swallowed hard. You could almost see his world crumble. My brother spoke up finally, his voice tight. Why didn't you tell me? Dad didn't answer. Because he had no answer. He had built his entire identity around control. Control over the family, over me, over everything. Now that was gone. My attorney stood. Your Honor, we would like to present our final statement. He moved smoothly, confidently forward, the way people do when they know they're about to land the final blow. This is not a case of misunderstanding, nor confusion, nor emotion. This is about honoring the legal decisions of the late Mr. Henry Carson, who had full authority to choose his beneficiary. He glanced at my father. It is also about correcting years of manipulation and mistreatment that my client suffered, and which Mr. Henry acknowledged himself in his own written letter. With each word, Dad's head dropped a little lower. My lawyer continued. Mr. Henry legally adopted my client. He put him down as his son. He had modified his will, not once, not twice, but thrice in the last 10 years, at every turn naming my client as the only heir to the estate. He turned to the judge. The evidence is clear, consistent, and legally binding. There is no ambiguity. The estate rightfully belongs to my client. He paused, then added a line that shook everyone. This case is not about reclaiming a family. It's about finally acknowledging who the real family truly was. My father flinched, as if stabbed. Mom wasn't here. She had left many years ago. She probably sensed the toxicity a long time before I ever did. Judge Anderson nodded. Thank you. Before I give my final verdict, would the beneficiary like to speak? My heart leaped. This was it. I slowly stood up. The entire courtroom turned to me, even Dad, though he could not look at me fully. My voice started soft, but steady. Your Honor, I want to speak, not just for myself, but for the man who raised me. Dad looked up. I didn't know Henry adopted me until the will was opened. I didn't know he changed everything for me. All my life, I wondered why he treated me with kindness when my own father didn't. Dad winced. I grew up believing I wasn't good enough, that I couldn't do anything right, that no matter how hard I tried, I was always the disappointment. My brother cast his glance down. Henry made me feel seen. He made me feel like I mattered. He encouraged me when no one else did. I thought he was just a kind grandfather. My throat constricted, but I kept talking. I didn't know he was actually my father in the ways that truly matter, through love, responsibility, and choice. Dad's eyes welled up with tears. He wasn't crying because of me. He was crying for himself. But let me be clear. I took a deep breath. This is not revenge. Dad looked hopeful for a second. Then I finished. This is closure. His shoulders sagged. Henry gave me something you never did. A chance. And now the law is simply honoring his decision. I turned to the judge. I accept the inheritance, not out of greed, but out of gratitude. I will honor Henry's legacy precisely the way he wanted. That is all. I sat down. Silence. Then Judge Anderson stood. Everyone held their breath. After reviewing the documents, testimonies, and legal records, he paused for a long moment. The court hereby rules that the entirety of the Carson estate shall be granted to the sole beneficiary. My father's hands clenched. Mr. Daniel Reed. My full name. My real name. The name Henry gave me. My father made a low, halting noise, half gasp, half sob. My brother leaned back in shock. My lawyer nodded in satisfaction. The judge continued. The claims of Mr. Michael Carson are dismissed for lack of legal standing. The adoption is valid. The will is valid. The evidence is conclusive. Bang, the gavel fell. And with that single strike, years of pain, struggle, and silence shattered. It was over. My father stood shakily. His face was wet with tears, but I felt nothing. Not hate, not joy, just finality. He whispered almost inaudibly, "Son, please, we can fix this." For a moment, I looked at him, the man who raised me in blood, but never in heart. Then I answered softly, "You lost me long before today." His knees buckled, and he sank back into the chair. My brother silently picked up his coat. For the first time, he looked at me not with superiority, but with awareness. Realization of everything he didn't know. My lawyer touched my shoulder. "You did well." As we walked out of the courtroom, the sun hit my face. Warm, bright, freeing. For the first time in my life, I stepped into a future that was truly mine. Not my father's shadow, not my family's cruelty, not the past. Alone, my identity, my legacy. And the gift Henry left me, not just wealth, but freedom. I had always thought that the feeling of walking out of a courtroom with a victory would be loud, cheering inside my head, adrenaline pumping, perhaps a sense of triumph. But as I stepped into that hallway, it felt curiously quiet. My footsteps echoed behind me. My lawyer walked ahead, talking about next steps, paperwork, official transfer dates, meetings with financial advisors. But his words faded into a soft blur. I wasn't listening. Because for the first time in years, I felt the weight lift. Not totally, but enough to let me breathe again. We went out. The reporters were waiting, cameras flashing like lightning, microphones thrust forward. "Daniel, were you expecting this? How do you feel about your father's reaction? Do you believe that the adoption was kept from you on purpose?" Their questions caromed off me, but I just kept walking, calm and collected, strangely light. My lawyer raised his hand. "No comments today." We continued toward the parking lot when I heard footsteps behind me. I turned. It was my brother. For the first time since this whole legal war started, He wasn't angry, just confused, broken even. The same expression I used to wear, trying to understand why Dad treated me differently. He walked up, swallowing hard. "Daniel." His voice cracked. I had no idea what to expect. Apology, fight, blame. Yet was surprised by what I did here. I shook my head. No, not until the will was opened. He stared down at the pavement. I didn't understand. I didn't respond. Because what was there to say? Years of silent approval, while Dad was mocking me, had built a wall between us. But in that instant, something changed in his eyes. An epiphany struck that all he had grown up believing wasn't quite the whole truth. He continued finally. "Dad, he always told me you were just sensitive, that you needed toughening up, that you were weak." My jaw tensed. It stung more than I expected, hearing the words spoken out loud. He looked at me again. But today, I saw the letter. I saw the documents. I saw how Henry talked about you. A breath trembled out of him. He never spoke about me like that. For a long moment, silence wrapped around us. Cars drove by. Wind brushed leaves across the pavement. Life moved as though nothing had changed. Finally, I asked softly, "Why did you come out here?" He straightened slightly, voice small. "Because I think I owe you a lot of things I never said." My chest tightened. He continued quietly. His voice then broke, not in guilt, but in realization. "I'm sorry that I wasn't there." The world stood still for a moment. It was not some melodramatic apology, not a grand gesture, just brutal honesty. And I realized something. Henry didn't just give me an inheritance. He gave me truth. And truth was untangling years of knots inside all of us. I nodded once. "Thank you." A simple answer, but the only one I could give. My brother took a shaky breath. "Dad wants to talk to you. He's in the car." I didn't move. He added, "He's not doing well." Part of me wanted to walk away. Part of me wanted to close this chapter cleanly and never look back. But another part of him, the part Henry raised, whispered that closure wasn't always about shutting doors. Sometimes it was about understanding what is behind them. So I walked towards the car. Dad sat inside, leaning forward, elbows on his knees. He looked older than I had ever seen him. Smaller, even. He stood quickly when he noticed me. Pero él no dijo nada. He didn't yell. He didn't make excuses. He didn't accuse me. Instead, his eyes welled up with tears. Real tears. "Daniel," he whispered, his voice trembling. I didn't move, didn't speak. He quickly wiped his face, ashamed to be crying. "I don't know how to undo what I did," he swallowed. "I don't know why I treated you the way I did. Maybe because you reminded me of things I wanted to forget. Maybe because I never knew how to handle a child who wasn't like me." His hands shook violently, "But I wasn't the father you deserved. I know that." Hearing him say it didn't fix anything. But it did something unexpected. It took the keenest sting off the pain. He moved closer. "I'm scared, Daniel." I looked at him, really looked at him. For one moment, I did not see the man who insulted me, didn't see the man who mocked me. I saw a man whose life had cracked open, and he didn't know how to put it back together. He whispered, "Please, don't shut me out forever." That plea hit harder than I thought it would. I thought long and carefully before answering. "I don't hate you." His eyes widened. "But I cannot feign that nothing has happened. I need time, space, and the truth." Dad nodded vigorously. Anything you need." The desperation in his voice was real. raw, almost childlike. I shifted a little, letting the breeze chill my face. After a long moment of silence, I said, "We'll talk. Slowly. Not today, but someday." Dad closed his eyes with relief, a relief so heavy it nearly buckled his knees. It wasn't forgiveness. Not yet. But it was a start. A real one. My brother came up to me. "Ready?" I nodded, stepping back. And Dad gently reached toward me. But I didn't move forward. He comprehended. Boundaries. Finally, we walked away. My lawyer waited by the car, beaming with pride. "You handled that better than most adults would." I shrugged. "I didn't win today because of revenge. I won because Henry believed in me." He nodded. "And because you believed in yourself." I didn't answer. Because believing in myself, that was still new. We got in the car, and as we pulled away, I looked back one last time. My father and brothers stood together, not as victors, not as enemies, but here, as individuals finally compelled to confront reality. And for the first time ever, I didn't feel small. I didn't feel powerless. I felt like someone who survived something heavy and came out standing taller. The road ahead wasn't perfect. There would be pain, conversations, healing, or maybe not. But it was my road now, not shaped by shame, not controlled by my father's voice, not shadowed by fear, just mine. I leaned back in the seat as the city blurred by. A new chapter wasn't waiting. It had already begun.